Tonight, the party begins. Territory Day well underway as fireworks fly off the shelves and revellers get bang for their buck. Anthony Albanese flies into Paris to mend Australia's fractured relationship with France. Petrol pain, how the price hike is making it tough for territory tourism. And back in the game, the rising stars of remote footy put on a show in the Red Centre. Good evening, Melissa Mackay with ABC News. Millions of dollars worth of fireworks will go up in smoke tonight as Territorians celebrate self-governance in our own unique way. Love them or loathe them, crackers are already lighting up the night sky in the first normal Territory Day since the start of the pandemic. And we have reporters in the action across the top end joining us live now. First to Mitch Abram at the Nightcliff foreshore. Mitch, sounds like the party's already started down there.
That's right, Mel. The party certainly has started and it's already going strong. Dozens of people have brought down food and drinks for a picnic, and as you can hear in a little bit as well, they brought plenty of fireworks with them too. Hasn't the weather turned it on for tonight? That unseasonal cloud cover clearing up just a bit, so we've got a beautiful view of all the fireworks going off up and down the coastline. There is a little bit of wind around though, so no doubt emergency services are hoping people are celebrating responsibly. Now, Mel, I've got a question for you. Can you do a live cross on Territory Day without getting in the action yourself? I say no. We've got the sparklers ready to go. If we can get them lit in the wind, here we go. And still plenty of time to get into the big bangs as well, so it should be a good night. Mel?
And we also have Miles Holbrook Walk, who's at a much safer spot. Miles, what's happening at Mindil Beach tonight?
Well, Mel, it may be safer, but it's still just as loud. Boom, bop, bam. You can probably hear in the background as crackers galore are going off. Thousands of Territorians have turned up to Mindil Beach here, where a major fireworks display of hundreds of tons of fireworks will be blown up to celebrate the Territory's marking of self-governance. It's an exciting time here, and certainly at 8:15, that's when people will be getting in on the action, and you can see people are joining the fun right now behind me. And when it's big business for crackers being sold and purchased, it means it's certainly the time to get a cracker, Mel.
Load up and load out.
Just going to head down to the beach.
Miles Holbrook Walk, ABC News.
Anthony Albanese will soon meet the French president in Paris as both leaders seek to repair a damaged diplomatic relationship. France was furious when Australia cancelled a $90 billion submarine contract, prompting Emmanuel Macron to accuse Scott Morrison of lying. But the current Prime Minister is intent on a reset, telling business leaders this nation can be trusted to keep its word and act on climate change. From Paris, political editor Andrew Probyn.
In Paris, Anthony Albanese finds a French connection. Andrew Probyn, ABC News, Paris.
Specialist engineering teams will soon head to the Pacific to assess problems with Australian-made patrol boats gifted to its island neighbours. The West Australian shipbuilder Austral has agreed to pay the costs of repairing the defects, but the Albanese government's described the coalition's handling of the defence program as a disgrace. Here's Defence correspondent Andrew Green.
Austral has built a well-earned reputation as the Australian shipbuilder. West Australian-based Andrew Green, ABC News, Canberra.
Petrol prices have soared past the $2 mark even after the fuel excise was halved in March. It's draining budgets for young travellers and cutting road trips short as they spend hundreds on fuel. But for some, no cost is getting in the way of a big adventure on the road.
The Great Australian Road Trip is a dream for many and the lifeblood of countless regional towns.
It's just been a dream for the last few years, really, since I came here like 5 years ago.
Roxanne Fitzgerald, ABC News.
The Territory Day coincides with another annual event in Central Australia this year, the Alice Springs Show. And our reporter Sam Jonsha joins us from Alice Springs now, and she's in the thick of it at the show. Sam, has Territory Day impacted attendance at all?
Hi Mel, no, not at all. But yes, thanks to a quirk in the calendar, here in Alice Springs, the show day and Territory Day are on the same day, meaning people made the most of their public holiday today. I have to say, I think the Territory Day cheer started extra early. There was plenty of, a good mood in the town and plenty of fireworks going off, even before night fell. But yeah, here at the show, things are heaving. The Dagwood dogs are flying out the door. Every ride has a lineup, and the Ferris wheel is going round and round. But I have to say, I'm not sure I'd want to be at the top right now. It's a chilly 10 degrees, so no matter how good that view is, I think I'd be awfully cold up there. But people on the ground seem to be rugged up and having a great time. I think the adrenaline might be keeping them going. It is pretty busy in here. We could see that start to drop off as we get closer to 8 o'clock. That's when the main event fireworks are happening in town. But people here seem to be having a good time, and I think everyone knows that there will be plenty of fireworks to enjoy throughout the whole evening, so I don't think people are necessarily rushing over there tonight.
Stay warm. Thanks, Sam. After being shut for more than 800 days, Solomon Islands is tonight reopening to the world, welcoming back international flights. But despite the ongoing challenges of the pandemic, the island nation has found itself at the centre of a geopolitical storm over a secretive security agreement it signed with China. Our correspondent Amy Bainbridge, who was on board the first flight into Honiara.
Touching down to a warm Pacific welcome. After more than 2 years.
Amy Bainbridge, ABC News, Honiara.
The United Nations says it's a setback to the fight against climate change that a ruling by the US Supreme Court will limit the power of the country's Environmental Protection Agency. The case against the EPA was backed by 19 Republican-led states and some of the nation's largest coal companies. It means the federal agency can't force states to shift to cleaner sources of energy. President Biden called it another devastating decision that aims to take the country backwards. It's the third contentious ruling by the majority Conservative court after it overturned abortion laws and expanded the right to carry guns. The downturn in the housing market is building momentum, with prices across the nation falling for the second month in a row. It's becoming harder to secure home loans as affordability bites, lenders tighten their credit criteria and fixed-term mortgage rates rise. Economists warn prices will continue to fall while the Reserve Bank hikes rates to get the cost of living under control. Rihanna Whitson reports.
At 3.8, once, twice, third. So there's the winner.
In the nation's biggest cities, the property boom is over.
I think it's a buyer's market, definitely.
Rihanna Whitson, ABC News.
To finance now, and the local share market started the new financial year with a small fall. Here's Alan Kohler.
Well, a saggy start to the new year. Banks up, offset by mining stocks falling. All ordinaries down 0.4%. And the two hairy dogs of 21-22, Sezzle and Zipco, which were the worst performers last financial year, got off to a snappy start in 22-23. Sezzle up 15% today and Zipco up 9%. Wall Street fell last night, which had a pretty depressing effect on the rest of the world. And by the way, the 6 months to June were the American share market's worst first half of the year since World War II, apart from 1962, which saw a slightly bigger fall in the first 6 months than this year's 20%. Now, 1962 was the Cuban Missile Crisis following the Bay of Pigs debacle in April 1961. And this year, it's partly about Russia again. And the other way in which history is rhyming is that in 1962, the Federal Reserve was also hiking US interest rates out of a recession. There were some pretty big falls on commodity markets last night because of concerns about the slowing global economy leading to less demand, and the Australian dollar eased to 68.2 US cents. And finally, a few special graphs from today's house price data for June. Now, first, although it's true that the decline in Sydney is accelerating at the moment, it's still tiny compared with the rise over the past 2 years. 42% it's been, or $340,000 up. Second, the decline in Sydney had been going at the same pace as the last downturn in 2017, until the first RBA rate hike on May the 5th, when it really steepened. And finally, although Melbourne and Sydney prices have rolled over and are clearly heading lower, in Adelaide and Brisbane, they're powering ahead still. So more than ever, there is no national housing market. And that's finance.
Brisbane has responded to last week's heavy defeat to Melbourne by powering past the Western Bulldogs by 41 points at the Gabba. The home side overcame a slow start and hamstring injuries to captain Dane Zorko and important defender Daniel Rich to finish strongly with 10 goals in the second half. Explosive forward Charlie Cameron kicked 4 goals to inspire the Lions' fight back. The result solidifies the Lions' place in the top 4, while the Bulldogs are now in a fight to get back in the top 8. A dominant display has helped Australia demolish Sri Lanka in the first cricket test in Galley. The visitors added just 8 runs to their overnight total, with Sri Lanka beginning its second innings 109 runs in arrears. Things quickly fell apart for the home side as the Australian spinners took full advantage of the turning surface. Nathan Lyon and Travis Head both finished with 4 wickets, as Sri Lanka was all out for just 113, leaving Australia needing just 5 runs to claim the win.
That's it. That's the end of it. Warner finishes it in style. Australia will celebrate a comprehensive victory for them.
It was Australia's second fastest test win since 1946. In tennis, Nick Kyrgios headlines a trio of Australians through to the third round of Wimbledon. Kyrgios put a bumpy and expensive start to the tournament behind him to dominate his Serbian opponent in straight sets. Ajla Tomljanovic also enjoyed a straight sets win, while compatriot Alex de Minaur came from a set down to win his match.
2 days after spitting at a spectator in a frustrated 5-set match he says was disrespectful, Nick Kyrgios left the sideshow behind him in a clinical and powerful display against Tom Maddox, ABC News.
It's been a tough few years for remote sports teams, with most competitions cancelled as the country all but shut down through the pandemic. But in the Northern Territory, one event has sprung back into action, with some of the best young footballers putting on a show in Central Australia.
Bumps, knocks and tackles. 7 teams from remote communities held nothing back in a multi-day under-18s football competition. Xavier Martin, ABC News, Alice Springs.
To the weather now, and tonight's viewer photo has been sent in by Jordan Smith at Yellow Water. Cool and windy across the top end again today as a cloud band brought unseasonably large rainfall totals across parts of the territory. 27 degrees the top in Darwin today, 24 in Batchelor, 29 in Warramyunga, 19 today in Katherine, 22 in Nhulunbuy and 20 in Borroloola, just 14 degrees the top in Tennant Creek and 17 in Alice Springs. There were a few significant falls in the 24 hours to 9 o'clock this morning. Channel Point had 35 millimetres, Douglas River 34. Not as much in the gauge to 3 p.m. though, 7 millimetres recorded at Tyndall RAAF base and 3 millimetres in Tennant Creek. Around Australia today, it was 16 degrees in Brisbane, 13 the top in Melbourne and a top of 19 degrees in Perth. On the satellite, you can see that substantial cloud band extends from the Timor Sea across the territory and into the eastern states, while a high in the Bight extends a ridge across most of the continent. Looking interstate tomorrow, showers and 17 the top for Sydney, cloudy in Adelaide, a top of 14 degrees, and a sunny day in Perth with 20 there. To our north, rain in Port Moresby and Jakarta, sunny in Singapore, a top of 35 degrees. And back home, Alice Springs headed for a top of 15 degrees, 18 in Tennant Creek. Further north, cloud about and 23 in Katherine, 24 in Borroloola and a top of 27 degrees in Nhulunbuy. To the west, 28 degrees a top in Batchelor tomorrow and in Darwin heading for a top of 29. There's a strong wind warning for the Arafura, Gove Peninsula and Roper Groot coastlines. There'll be a morning high tide at 8:30 tomorrow with seas off Darwin to 2 metres. The sun will rise at 7 minutes past 7 tomorrow. And looking ahead, cloud clearing over the weekend in Darwin, but there are some cool nights ahead, while in Alice Springs, temperatures in the mid-teens with cold nights dipping as low as -2 throughout the week. And that's ABC News for this Friday night. We leave you tonight with a bit of a blast from the past as the ABC celebrates its 90th birthday. And stay with us now, we've got a farewell special for Lee Sales up next.
It's a momentous occasion in the struggle against apartheid.
And Andrew, do you know of any motive?
Not so much in a landslide as an avalanche.